Morning, everybody. How are we doing today? It's Friday morning here in Minnesota. Rainy, overcast, gray, drab, but cooler. See, there's a win in there somewhere if you dig a little bit. You always gotta find the win in life. You can't let life get the upper hand. You gotta always be on top of it. It seems silly to be a ghost made flesh. To have a flesh vacation for 75 years and to not make the best of it. It would be awful to return to the afterlife and go, man, I didn't take the best advantage of that time, did I? Sure wasted a lot of it, being miserable, being grumpy, chasing possessions, food, sex, wine, communion, fellowship with friends. These are the things a ghost, a spirit craves. We're here given this 75 years, and I think we're just so misled. I think we're so consumed by consuming and the awful constructs that divide us instead of just being stargazing spirits. You know, I shouldn't have the time in this walk to be so concerned about people halfway around the planet to hate them. To have love and empathy for them, that's noble. But to hate strangers I've never seen or known, it's funny how half this country is so concerned about Afghanistan suddenly when no one here gave a damn about it in the last 10 years. Or ever, really, for that matter. Suddenly, though, the political spectrum is such that we have to pile on, what Biden's doing, so let's rip apart. It's so silly. It's so silly. We never really had much of a mandate there to begin with, or a causation to be there. I'm no expert, but it didn't work for the Soviets. Want to know why we thought it would work for us? It's not really our place to tell them who's going to govern them. And the most people who need to get out are the ones who, from the viewpoint of the average Afghani, was working with the West. That's it's tricky, and again, I don't have a strong opinion on it, but again, it's about enjoying this life. It's about enjoying this walk, and you just got to try to find ways to always win, to always find joy, celebration, happiness. Today I want to talk about a guy who is really unknown. This is going to be my fourth installment of great records that are pretty unknown by artists that are relatively unknown. And I'm not really sure how I want to define that all the time. I know the first one, the Bob Doro, is going to be pretty rare to most people. Sometimes the artist might be a little better known, but the record will be more rare. But I think for the most part, I'm going to try to keep it so it's something that's not on most people's radar on the first 2-3 levels of being a jazz fan. It's when you get to the fourth and fifth rung of the jazz collector circle that these names start becoming preeminent. You start knowing about them. But anyway, we're going to talk about a guy by the name of Ron Albright. And yes, this is a hard record to find. It's on the Regent sub-label of Savoy. And it's with Kenny Burrell, which is part of the price of admission here. You're also paying for him being on. The Burrell can drive the cost of a record up like a Dexter Gordon can, like a Hank Mobley can. Certain people being present will make that guy's record more collected and people want it. Leonard Gaskin rounds the session out on the bass. It's just gorgeous stuff. And as anonymous as the name Ron Albright is, he's by no means a no-name in jazz circles. His pedigree is fairly well documented. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of information here. Born in Chicago, July 3rd, 1930. And since I last talked about Ron Albright, he passed away. He passed away August 12th, 2021. So what's that, 2 weeks ago? Ron Albright passed away. Rest in peace, soul brother. Hopefully we'll see you in the great beyond, wherever that takes us. So we just lost Ron Albright, and that's fairly under the radar, sadly. He worked with Johnny Tate in Chicago, Carmen McRae, goes to New York in 1955, works with Rolf Kuhn, starts his own trio in 57. 57, 58, he works with Dizzy Gillespie, some of his bigger bands helping him do some arrangements. He then accompanies Sarah Vaughan, Lena Horne, and the great Gloria Lynn, who's a name that's kind of unspoken, but her string of records at Everest, original recordings at Everest, 58, 59, 60, they're really great stuff. A lot of gospel in Gloria Lynn and the blues, of course. His compositions, and remember most piano players are going to be composers to some degree, were recorded by Sarah Vaughan, Cal Tjader, Horace Silver, Blue Mitchell, to name a few. In '64, he starts working with the great Nancy Wilson and is arranging and playing for her for quite a stretch. He actually makes guest appearances on The Jeffersons, one of the great TV shows. He makes a guest appearance on Sanford and Son back in the 70s, and on the Carol Burnett Show. He makes a guest appearance. So he has quite a long life in the music business. But his star as a jazz player, he stays kind of in the background. He's one of those stars you can't see with the naked eye. You gotta get your telescope out to find Ron Albright. But man, he's a great player. And the fact that the wonderful Kenny Burrell is here playing and comping with them, it's just really a blissful record. It took me a while to track it down, you know, and of the region titles that run from 6,000 up to about 6,085 or so, only about half of those are jazz, and I have almost all of those. There's some other weird stuff in there. It's organ drinking songs and just like weird, not jazz stuff. But what is Regent on jazz is really solid, and it's affiliated with Savoy. You're getting on a crossover there between recording artists and players. So a record that's worth finding. And I wouldn't pay more than $40-50 for it, because you'll probably see this in the wild eventually for $40, $30. It's not highly in demand where the price should ever go more than that. Someone's asking $100, they're really rolling the dice hoping someone's really desperate to find it. It's a great record. It's so under the radar that there shouldn't be a high price tag on it. And again, Kenny Burrell will always inflate your prices to some degree. Another record I want to talk about briefly here. And this is a record I've talked about several times over the years. This is by the great Sonny Criss. And this is a label out of Texas, Peacock. And they only have a couple great jazz records that I know of. Betty Carter has one that's really outstanding. Really kind of avant-garde vocal stuff. But this is a melancholy Sonny Criss. And he's working with some great musicians here. The trombone playing of Ola Hansen is just melancholic beauty. And as I listened to this today, preparing for my episode, I was like, oh, who's that trombone again? I can't remember. And then when I went to look it up, I'm like, oh, I've already jotted the note from last time I played it. Trombone, Ola Hansen, on the second track, which is the track You Don't Know. I think I might even throw grabbed this at one point. It looks like I did. TG means I throw grabbed it. But man, this one just jumped off the page to me again. And to me, if a song jumps at you both times, not both times, but when you listen to a song and it jumps at you, and you put it on again 6 to 8 months later, and that same song jumps at you, there's something connecting with you. But Criss was a great player, an alto player, kind of in the Parker mold to some degree, as all players were in the 50s. You know, Parker really was the shape of jazz at that point, along with Monk. But Criss has a real expressive, wonderful tone. It's light, it's crisp, it's somewhere between Bird and Desmond. You know, Paul Desmond, the great light player with Dave Brubeck. I'm a big fan of Criss. He's got a lot of fire when he wants to be the blustery bebop player that he was schooled in, but he also has a lot of other elements to his sound, including the blues and gospel and the black church. But this is him in rare form, 55, 56, yeah. Again, this is it though. This is what it does. It just nudges at your soul, plucks on a few heartstrings, makes you feel something. That's it. See what I'm saying? There's people leaving the ground right now going, yeah, I'm coming back for that. This is the meaning of the music. It's about feeling. And again, I had the episode the other day about the tone poets and the people complaining about the poets and all the people talking about audiophile this and gear technology. And that stuff has a place. And it's okay to talk pressings sometimes. But there has to be some insight into the music for me to be interested. And so often there'll be a long episode or a long dialogue and the music's never even a part of the conversation. It just goes on and on about this pressing versus that pressing. People get mad at each other. You ain't gonna get that here. I'm just not gonna go into that element of it. It doesn't matter. The music's what matters. It doesn't matter what the Bible is pressed on, or what kind of font they use for the text. The healing comes in the words themselves. The power of the music isn't in the type of equipment you use. The power of the music is in the groove itself. The music. So I'm not going to belabor that point, but man, a lot of good feedback on that. I appreciate y'all for commenting on that. This Sonny Criss record is also pretty tough to come by. This is a fresh sound Spanish pressing, and I tell you that so you know you can find it for an affordable price, because the original Peacocks go for hundreds of dollars and are pretty much impossible to find. The only time I've even seen them, they've been beat up beyond recognition and they still want $200 for it. So fantastic stuff. It's stuff that I think more people want, but they don't realize it. A question I'm going to pose to y'all. What do y'all think is the greatest song of all time? And this isn't just limited to jazz. This can cover any song from any era. And if you put something stupid in from the last 5 years, you'll be dismissed. I'm not even going to listen to it. Anything that's just repeating loops and tracks, it's today's production, today's musicians, there's just not the musicality necessary to be greatest songs of all time. And that's even more driven home when I play some new stuff around my kids, and I'll put on something with some real musicality, and even my kids hear the difference. The average record today, I can get it literally in 20, 30 seconds per track. I'm like, okay, that's all that. There's nothing more to that. I know it now. And I can get to know those records in 1 or 2 listens. I'm okay, I got it. New Rudimental record came out. I'm a big fan of Rudimental. 3 or 4 listens, and I kind of have a pretty good grasp of the record. A jazz record, you can hear something new on your 100th listen. There's still something to glean. But I was listening to the Beatles yesterday in the car, and boy, some of their Eleanor Rigby, Norwegian Wood, Nowhere Man, We Can Work It Out, that era, Rubber Soul, Revolver, even up into the White Album, with Dear Prudence. It's just such incredible music. Ringo's beats are really simple but perfectly musical. Paul McCartney's bass lines are always the most melodic, round-sounding bass lines ever. The bass line in Dear Prudence, that do-loom-doom-do, it's killing. It's just killing. And just got me thinking about greatest songs of all time. And there's a lot of things. Day in the Life comes to mind. Right off the bat, that comes to mind. But for me, I think the song that still excites me the most, even after hundreds of plays. I've DJ'd this song hundreds of times. And it still excites me because of the wonderful nature of the production. This had to have been done in the Capitol Studios in 54, 55. And the orchestra, the Capitol Orchestra, they do this stuff in one take. And there's not 16, 32, 179,000 tracks. This stuff is done on 2-track recording. And it means you have to have musicians that are great. Not good, great, to nail this stuff. Both tempo-wise, melodically, harmonically, the dynamics of things. You all have to be in sync and be great players. And this, for me, might be the greatest song of all time. It's so perfect. And we'll probably get taken down if I don't keep the volume down. But the Spanish sounding guitar, Martin's vocal, yeah, just the strings in the background, the lyric itself, it's actually taken from a Mexican song. I have to look. I just saw it, but I can't remember. Quincera was the name of the original composition, and he wrote English lyrics for a Girl from Ipanema, this Mexican writer, and he also translates this into English. And Martin kind of does a seminal version of this. Others have done Sway, but boy, his melodic phrasing, the muted horns, there's plucking by the strings that comes up on the break, that to me is just so elegant yet fun. It's not rigid and pompous. Even Sinatra at times can become a little bit too serious, takes himself a little serious, and one could never say that about Dean Martin. He always has a bit of tongue-in-cheek, a little bit of spoiled brat, fun, drunk, you know. The movie Sexy Beast, one of my favorite movies of all time, uses this song wonderfully in the early parts of the Spanish Via. Again, well, watch the pluck strings here. And I could be wrong, maybe there are some overdubs on this, but from the era that it is and how before the Beatles this is, I have to think it's 2-track, studio, band killing it, live, nailing that shit. And it never fails to create the atmosphere I wanted to create. I can play it at a gig and it just kind of creates this trance of romantic spell casting. And it's not saccharine like a Disney song or some of the more romantic music. It becomes very saccharine and doesn't have any kind of balls to it. It's on the Dean Martin Hey Brother Pour the Wine record, which comes out 2212. So that's probably actually puts this a little later than what I said. It's probably more like 1960, I would guess, being 2212. I mostly play from the greatest hits, but again, it's just such an outstanding recording, such a beautiful song. Tell me what your greatest favorite song of all time is. What do you think is the coolest song ever? I'd be interested to hear what some of you guys have to say. Maybe I'll even discover a couple new tracks that way. But you gotta love Dean Martin. You gotta check out Ron Albright. He's a great player. That record is definitely worth finding. His record on Vanguard is also really outstanding. And then of course that great Sonny Criss record. That whole record's just jazz royalty from that era. It's just fantastic. So we'll keep it short and sweet today. Hope you all enjoyed the content of that last couple episodes. We got some more fun stuff coming up real soon. Appreciate you all, Patreon supporters. Thank you all for your blessings. If you want to help support the channel, please go to Patreon. If you want to just buy some merchandise that helps support the channel and the coffee shop as well. We are trying to raise funds now for the neon sign for the coffee shop. So if you want to throw a few bucks, there's many different ways you can go about it. Let me know, reach out to me, go through Patreon, go through the merchandise store, and you can just send me something for PayPal. We want to do a nice, cool jazz logo symbol in neon for the Jazz Shepherd Coffee Shop, and hopefully all of y'all can come visit someday. And anybody who bought Jazz Shepherd merch, you show up at the coffee shop, your coffee's on me. Y'all be safe. Peace.